Time for us to talk about the series. It's ended. We're combining our podcast show with our review show in one, and I'm going to have a full panel for you guys today. So bear with me. They're all going to be joining very, very soon. I just want to have a little chat with you guys first and foremost to explain to you how the show is going to work. So these open up to the public. I have pinned the live chat link in the live chat as well as in the description, so you guys can call in on the show and have your say. Now, I'm going to be fair with everybody, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes each just to give your say and say what you want to say. If you're shorter than that, that's fine. What will happen then after that is that the people on the panel will obviously discuss it. We will discuss your topic or whatever question you have for us, and we will obviously debate it and discuss it and see how things go with regards to that. But generally speaking, we're just going to be analyzing the series as a whole. Now, we've got amazing guests for you over here because we've got a very, very diverse panel for you. There's fans, there's experts, there's journalists, there's everything that we can bring to you. So I'm hoping that we get a balanced discussion over here. I see you guys have gone crazy in the live chat already, so keep those comments coming. I'll try to get as many as possible. I'm going to be turning on the super chat if you guys want your comments to be jumping out, because I can't get to your comments right now. There's so many people out there asking us questions. So if you want to get anything, just click on the super chat and have your say with us. If you're new to this channel and it's the first time that you guys are here, you know what you have to do. You got to click that subscribe button. You have to click that notification bell for all future videos. Also smash that like button, get commenting, and let's get sharing. Let's get straight into the series discussion. I've got Tinus for you here. I've got Aditya for you here. I've got Mpo. I've got Marshall. And we're waiting for a couple of other guys on the panel to join as well. So let's get into it. 3-2 series win. I'm not sure, though. I'm happy, of course, that we won. Obviously, I think everybody is. So we've got Ravi that just joined us as well. I'm happy that we won. I'm happy about the 3-2 win, etc., of course. And I think everybody is from a South African perspective. Marshall, I'm sorry that you're going to see some smiling faces in front of you. But I think that there's a lot to discuss for both sides, because I think that it was a learning curve for both sides. I think the 3-2 papers over some cracks that South Africa have in the team. That's my personal opinion. Remember, the views are not Cricket Fanatics. It's mine and my opinion. And everybody on the show, their opinions are their own. So I think let's get discussing about it. Let's talk about it in depth, and let's see what happens. What everybody's viewpoint was on this particular series. I think let's start with the South Africans first, so that Marshall can obviously work out his rebuttal, and Ravi as well. But let's start with Tennis, Aditya, and then Mpo. I just want to know your overview of the series. How are you feeling right now? I know, Tinus, I'm going to ask you to take your journalist hat off for now and ask you to put it back on a little bit later. As a fan of the Proteas, how are you feeling about this particular series win?
Yeah, I think all fans should be very happy, very pleased, obviously, very surprised. I'm very surprised at the result. I really thought, especially beforehand, I thought maybe 4-1 for the West Indies. After the first game, I thought 5-0 we're coming. It was so interesting because, like you said, it looks like the performances paper over some of the cracks that there might be. But also when you're struggling in certain aspects and you're still managing to find a way to win, that also does speak volumes of your character and the things that are working. And I think two of the biggest things that are working is Quinton de Kock and at the top, and Tabraiz Shamsi in the middle overs. He's been a revelation. So those are two of the plus of the positives. But then there are a few negatives. The inability to convert good starts into really massive totals. Although I did think that the West Indies bowled very, very well at the death. They mixed it up with slower balls. They really did well. But I think yesterday South Africa only scored 2 boundaries in the last 5 overs, and one of them was an inside edge from Vian Mulder. I mean, that's just not good enough. You're not going to you're not going to win tournaments if that's what you're doing. And another worrying part is the lack of an all-rounder of a six bowling option. I'd like to see also that KG bats at number 9 and not at number 8 already. I think Dwayne Pretorius might make a difference. I couldn't really understand why Pehluquayo didn't get a game, especially when Lungi was really struggling. I know he did well yesterday. He also got smacked in his second last over for 2 sixes by Puran, but I mean he did well comparing to his previous performances. So that's also an interesting part. But yeah, those are just a few thoughts. If you ask me, if you put me on the spot.
You can just go to the next guy. So I for Michelle, and then obviously end up with Ravi.
Yeah, I think South African fans should be happy with the 3-2 result. And when we talked about this game in the preview, one of the challenges we had hoped that South Africa would overcome is the fact that they're playing in a series decider. There is pressure, and winning close games has been a problem in the recent past for South Africa. So this was one of those opportunities for the team to really dominate, and they did that. I was very happy to see, certainly in this last game, I was very happy to see how proactive the batsmen were. Of 120 balls, there were only 31 dot balls in this game compared to 50 in the last one. So that shows that strike rotation was a lot better. Aiden Markram was fantastic at 3. Quinton de Kock has been great. 350s in a 5-match series. Outstanding result. And as Tina said, Tabraiz Shamsi has been fantastic, as has George Linde in matches. So going into the World Cup, great signs for the bowling attack. In saying that, some of the decision-making with respect to the flexibility in the batting order has been a little bit strange, because you've taken an informed batsman and Rassie van der Dussen, put him into a position that he's not comfortable with, and you're not getting the runs out of him. Because the one challenge that South Africa has been facing is not making enough runs at the back end. But the problem with and that is quite an obvious concern, but that concern is because of a lot of the moves that have been made. If you look at all of these games where South Africa has batted first, how many set batsmen were there post the 15th over? Yesterday, Quinton de Kock got out in the 13th over, Aiden Markram got out in the 17th over, and we know how difficult it has been for new batters to get set and start smacking it right away. So again, as Tina said, 2 boundaries in the last 5 overs, simply not good enough, and it's going to cost you at the World Cup. But a large part of that problem is because Rassie van der Dussen has been relegated to 5 instead of him batting at 4. Him batting at 4 would have perhaps alleviated some of those back-end over concerns. But look, overall, it's a great series win for South Africa. I think everyone should be incredibly proud of what they've achieved against a very strong West Indian batting lineup. And going into the World Cup, it's definitely going to do their confidence a world of good.
So, I don't know. At the start of yesterday, I kind of felt like winning or I was indifferent to South Africa either winning or losing. But what I think I agree with largely with what Tinas and Aditya said. I'm happy they've won, and for me the key thing is watching this team, how this team works, and this is in the Test series as well. In the tight moments of the game where it can either swing either way, how they're doing. And they did that very well from a bowling perspective throughout the last 3 T20s. Yes, they lost the 4th one throughout the back end, but to get, I think it was 40 runs out of your 8 overs of spin in game 4, that said a lot about the value of your spinners. And Tabraiz Shamsi and George Linde have both of them have grown leaps and bounds. And Tabraiz bowled like a world number 1 bowler in T20s in the series, and he deserves that man of the series. I think the other positive was Quinny's form. I'm happy that he's back to his old self again and his old dominant self. And there's nothing more that I could ask of Quinny from that perspective. I think from the bowling side, South Africa need to figure out. I don't know. I think the plan is to go bowler heavy in the World Cup, so you can try and restrict many teams to around about 170, 180. And obviously, as the tournament goes on, you might have to add another spinner to try and do that. But the question is, you need to break up that three. You can't bowl those three quicks together. Because as Tina says, KG is too high at 8. In as much as everyone says, no, just tell KG to bat, that's not going to work. It isn't. You need somebody at 8. And I kind of felt that Andile's been thrown to the wayside after having just one poor series, even though over the past 4 years, he's taken the most wickets for South Africa in T20s, and he has the second highest economy rate of a pacer in the side in for South Africa in the last 4 years, and the only person who beats him is Dwayne Pretorius, and Dwayne Pretorius is not even there. And that was at the start of the series. I think Anouk may come in with a small sample size, but for me that hurt me because we're busy trying to bowl Lungi back into form, but you're not willing to do the same for Andile. And it kind of felt, and the question was, throughout the series, when they were hitting 160, 160, 160, for the third time they hit 160, the question should have come in and said, how do we get those extra 15, 20 runs, which Bacha spoke about in the press conference yesterday? And that's possibly trying to add an extra batsman at the bottom. And they went for Vian Mulder, which is fine yesterday, and I was happy that they tried something different. But I wouldn't have minded Andile Petlukwaya coming in at 7, which is a little bit high, but I'd have been okay with it this series because of the lack of Dwayne Pretorius. But for me, that's where the issue comes in. And that's where I'm a little bit worried about this team strategy going forward. From a batting perspective, Rassie van der Dissen's role needs to be clarified. Because the way we're batting with such a top-heavy batting lineup, there comes a point in a game where one batsman is going to get the short end of the stick. Because we're trying to, try force David Miller in as early as possible to score, and he might not even get to bat, or like Rassie yesterday, come in so late that you just need to go from ball one, and that's not necessarily a Rassie type of game. And so I think that needs to be sorted out. If one guy has to sit bench, that's fine. That's okay. The tournament is long. Guys will get opportunities, but something needs to change in the role. But I think kind of what we saw yesterday with Temba opening and Aiden coming at 3, there might be some clarity around that. Maybe Aiden and Faf might switch their roles there. But then 4 and 5 and possibly even 6, that needs to be sorted out because it felt a batsman light yesterday. But to a certain extent, going to the World Cup, having Dwayne there could strengthen it a little bit more. But yesterday, I just kind of felt that you need to always be looking for boundaries. And if you're a set batsman and you're in way longer, like Aiden in the 17th over, you need to try to look for boundaries. And you need to find ways to look for boundaries, especially on slow wickets. And I'm very worried in the UAE that we're gonna arrive in this with the same problems when we're talking about the same things at the World Cup, with South Africa struggling to put up competitive scores on slow, dry wickets.
Do you really want to hear from me?
I really do. Because you know why I want to hear from you? Because I think that this victory for me, it was more of a this series for me was more of a learning curve for both sides, trying to figure out what they're going to do going forward. And I think that the West Indies actually learned a hell of a lot from what they need to do over here. And I think that I'm actually not, if I was a West Indies fan, I wouldn't actually be as fearful of going forward. That's me personally, because I think that there are certain things that you figured out. There's some guys here that stepped up really in the series that you know that you can count on, I think, going forward. And we know that with tournaments, West Indies always step up. They just come to the party when it's needed from them. But from your perspective, how do you feel after this? And do you think that there's enough to take away from here to keep you a little bit positive going into the next series that you guys are going to be playing?
So I'm going to surprise you in that I'm not bothered. I'm not. It's going to sound like, oh, you're just trying to cut. No, I'm actually not bothered, because a bilateral series 3.5 months before a World Cup is happening is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. It's, if we're going to be honest, it's 5 friendly matches. If we're really summing up what it is, and in the West Indies, we're super critical of everything our team does. And I try to step away from that a bit. I actually think, okay, so South Africa won it. And first things first, as a West Indian fan, let me first and foremost give South Africa credit, because the three times that they won those matches, you would have put your money on the West Indies to chase down the total. So South Africa deserve credit, and there's no getting away from that. What I would say is, and my overwhelming sense is still that, and I said it when I was last on, I still think West Indies lost this series more than South Africa won it. In some senses, not all senses, but in some cases, there were reckless shots with no awareness of what was going on in terms of the game situation. Even yesterday, when Mulder took his 2-in-2, what Andre Russell was doing, I have no idea, because that was totally unnecessary. That was nothing to do with Mulder's bowling. That was just us giving the game away, as far as I was concerned. But I don't want to focus on individual things to try and take away what actually happened in the series. I think, generally speaking, both teams have still got a lot of questions to be answered coming out of that series. For us, it's obviously spin. I want to put some respect on Shamsi's name. I feel like, because of Rashid Khan, it's like people don't want to put respect on his name. And it's like, oh, he's number one by default or something like that. Listen, the guy bowled well. And yes, we have our problems with spin, but the two things can both be correct. We can be terrible with spin, and he can have bowled well at the same time. I don't like this idea. I mean, the same thing kind of happened in the Test series, where it was like, oh, West Indies batted terribly, as if the South African pacers weren't good. So the two things can both be true at the same time. I think, for West Indies, luckily we've got Australia coming up next week, and then Pakistan straight after that. So we've got enough game time to carry on tweaking. And what I would say is, we experimented a bit more than South Africa did. And I'm a bit surprised at that. That South Africa, sorry, not at us, at South Africa not experimenting more, because I don't see what there is to be gained out of playing a 5-match series and not looking at your bench. And don't get me wrong, they probably wanted to win the last match, and winning the match is more important. But you carried some guys who didn't even play. So what? I don't get it. Like we what do you call it? Took out Holder for planned rest so that some other players could get a goal. Spiceman came out so that Simmons could get a goal. Fidel Edwards came in. Sinclair dropped out so Akil Hussain could get and. With 3 months to go to the World Cup, and I say this for it's not a criticism per se of South Africa, because I'm not a South African fan, but I just think that there's missed opportunities there. Because how many games are left remaining? You're narrowing the gap to look at your bench and see, well, what happens? Like yesterday, so Anric got his injury and they suddenly had to switch it up. But it shouldn't take an injury to suddenly know, well, what are we going to do? What happens if that's in the World Cup? Have you really looked at your bench to see what your options are? And take that as constructive criticism towards South Africa. That's not me trying to deflect blame away from the West Indies. We've got our own issues, but that's some constructive criticism I think South Africa need to look at. It can't just be about win, because that's not how it works in the World Cup. You're going to have to look at your bench strength at some point in time. But like I say, generally speaking, for the West Indies, not too despondent. We experimented in bits and pieces. I'm our middle order. So what's that? Hetmeyer, Pooran, if you include Gale as well, Pollard, Russell, Holder, Allen. I'm going to have to hope that this was a freak occurrence in this series, and that 9 times out of 10, actually, it's not going to go this bad. And that actually 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, they pummel their way through. So what I would say, I guess, again, and the last thing I'll leave you with in terms of South Africa is great bowling performance, but not all batting attacks are going to give it away like we did. So that just needs to I think that needs to be bear in mind. And also for South Africa, in terms of the batting lineup, you can't go, well, you can because they did, but you can't go 5 matches in a row and not convert from strong positions. Yesterday's one was actually the most ridiculous. I think Tina said it at the start. They were 128, I think, for none or one with 6 overs to go. There's no way in that position you're supposed to end on 168. And I actually thought we might win as a result. So and I use that as an example to just say how both teams have a lot of issues that they still need to address. And that neither one of us is by any means the finished article.
Facts. Ravi? Spiceman, you say?
Yeah, not to be confused with the other Spice Man, of course. But no, absolutely, I concur with Mash there, because one of the things I tweeted out today actually was a video of Dwayne Bravo, and you can check it out on West Indies Instagram page as well. Dwayne Bravo is actually coaching Lazard Williams, Buren Hendricks, and a couple of the other South African bowlers on how to bowl the varieties of slower balls he was bowling during the series, and I thought that was priceless for me. Because if I was Lazard, and we're two different people, of course, but I would have been very despondent after that and not get a single game out of that 5-match series, to be honest with you. But the fact is, the learning never stops. He still, the fact that he stood there for the listen to Dwayne was a very good thing, was priceless. I think there's something to be gained out of that, just to listen to an elder statesman, a veteran of the game, especially in T20s. But some big hallmarks from the South African contingent. Well done to Team South Africa. I'm, of course, very happy about that as well. To come back from losing the very first game to win 3-2 is absolutely incredible, especially when a lot of people didn't bank on South Africa to make a dent in this particular series, a T20 series to be precise. QDK, Quinton de Kock, Rassie, absolutely important, fantastic contributions from them. Aiden Markram showed us prowess. I personally, I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. I think we've often debated whether or not Aiden was going to stick around, whether he was the right guy for the T20 setup, and we shouldn't look at more specialist T20 batters. But I don't think Aiden's going to go anywhere too far from the T20 setup. And Tabraiz Shamsi, wow, what a incredible performance from him. I always think back to Newlands when South Africa played England in that T20 tour at the end of last year, and David Malan was hitting him all over towards the railway stand, and you guys remember that, right? And I was thinking to myself, what a confidence then. That could dent anybody's confidence, any bowler's confidence. And to come back as strong as he has, to be one of the standout players in this particular series, is something to admire. But going over to the West Indies side, Evan Lewis highlighted his importance completely there. I think he stepped up to the plate in a very big way. Again, he's one of those guys not going to go anywhere too far. Not going to go far away from the team at least. Definitely a vital player in the West Indies setup. Fabian Allen, absolutely critical. For me, when he got injured, I think that was the turning point for the series, in my opinion, because he was one of the most economical bowlers, and he certainly took vital wickets at key points in the game. And the minute Akil Hussain came in, by no means am I making Akil a scapegoat, because I remember popping the question or asking the question to Mash and the team, how good is Akil Hussain? And I checked out the videos. He's a very good guy. He's a very good player. It's just that one over, it's a game about opportunities and small margins. And if you have a very costly over, chances are it's going to be your death sentence as far as T20 games go. His one over, I think, costs close to 20-odd runs. And that's not something that, you can easily defend against. It's something you could easily take the game away from you comprehensively. So it's those small margins that I think the West Indies need to work on. You all heard of the saying, ABC, always be closing. It's coming back to Mash's point about the middle order having to close the innings, chasing a meager total of 160. I found that I was also smiling from end to end, thinking, okay, 160 odd on the board. I think West Indies can make that comfortably. In conventional times, absolutely. But having seen them falter like that towards the end, I have to be honest, it is a cause for concern. Hetmai and Puran play an absolutely critical role in that respect, and they need to remedy their way of batting. I agree, Andre Russell had a beautiful wide delivery that he could have easily guided towards third man, but instead he hit it straight to the man at point, giving Vian his second wicket of that over. But be that as it may, I think there's plenty of lessons to take away from this. Coming back to the South African side of things, I think what won in the game at the end of the day was selection. It was very brave for Temba to come in and open, and for them to bring in Vian Mulder. And I think Vian did exceptionally well under the circumstances. 2 vital wickets. no matter how good or bad a delivery, it's still a wicket at the end of the day, and it's still a win for South Africa. So this win will definitely serve them well, and I certainly hope it's going to carry over during the tour of Ireland. But I think it's again going to come down to the fact that everyone's going to be playing different sort of types of opposition overall. West Indies is going to be playing Australia next. South Africa is going to be going to Ireland. Oh, sorry, rather be playing Ireland. And it's like chalk and cheese, to be honest with you. So you have to ask ourselves, how important was the series, and it absolutely was critical for them. But again, South Africa is going to go to Ireland, and West Indies is going to be playing Pakistan and Australia at home. It speaks volumes. There's major differences there.
Yeah, so a lot to talk about, and I know Tennis, I know you have to run off soon, but I just need to ask you a question, and it's something because you were in the press conferences, of course. I will get to your super chat very soon, Werner. Thank you very much for the super chat. But Tennis, from your perspective, I want to talk about Pavuma's captaincy. I was having a chat with a friend of mine about it consistently throughout the series, and he's in favor of Temba as a captain. He thinks that Temba is probably one of the best T20 captains we've had in a long time, he feels. He said based on decision-making on when he brought on certain bowlers, being brave enough to leave Shamsi for an extra over at the end, being brave enough to change the bowlers as he did. A lot of his changes, particularly in the fourth T20, ended up being wickets as well. So I just wanted to ask you from your perspective, what's your thoughts on him as a captain, and did he impress you as a captain? And Aditya, I would like you to also maybe add some thoughts about Pavuma as well. Oh.
Sorry, my internet just dropped. Can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah, Temba was good, I thought. There was one game where I think maybe he got his maths messed up a bit, because there were 3 overs left. KG bowled 2 overs. That was actually the game. That was the 4th game. KG and Lungi both had 2 overs left, and he gave Lungi the 3rd last over. So then you don't bowl out KG, who's your best bowler. But I mean, in the end, it didn't really matter because they got smacked in any case, both of them. So the way he used his spinners was exceptional. He was brave. It didn't always come off like Aiden at the beginning. That didn't come off. And it also looks like he brings energy to the field, diving around, saving boundaries. So I think he's the question mark around Temba was rather, where do you bat him? And for me, you should open. If he plays, he should open with Quinton. He shouldn't bat number 3. But then obviously in the first few games they had Riza opening, and then there was a bit of a imbalance almost at the top. So that when they sorted that in the last game, hopefully they can go on with that now. So no, I thought that was pretty good. Just a quick comment on what Michelle also said earlier about the West Indians and how they went about their business, just going out there and playing some rash shots. I think it's quite interesting because it's almost the opposite of the South African problem. I think maybe the West Indies think, listen here, we bat until number 165. We can just, if I fail, the next guy's going to come in and he's going to smack it out of the park. Whilst the South Africans, they know we have KG, we have 3 number 11s at number 9, 10, and 11. So they have to be a bit more cautious. And the interesting thing is that it was 2 sides of the same coin, because it had the same result at the end. So it just shows you that there's more than one way to play T20 cricket and to fail in T20 cricket. The other thing is just the size of the squad. I think a lot of guys like Janneman and Lazard, those guys didn't play because they picked the squad. It's quite interesting actually, because they can't fly. When they made the arrangements to go on this tour, they thought that they could still not fly guys in from South Africa to Ireland. So this squad is in its entirety going to Ireland to play the 3 ODIs and the 3. I think they probably left already from Grenada to Ireland. So they're going to play 3 ODIs and 3 T20s in Ireland with the same squad. So hopefully then a few of those guys get a chance. But I'd rather probably see them in the ODIs against Ireland, because that's really, who cares what happens there? That's so yeah, it really doesn't matter. But now you have a problem because the Indian tour is I think it is cancelled. So now you have I think 3 T20s against Ireland and 3 against Sri Lanka left before the T20 World Cup. So you need to build consistency, but at the same time, there are issues that you need to address. So yeah, that's also going to be a balancing act.
Now, Aditya, obviously, Temba spoke about opening the batting with Quinton and that being the place where he thinks that he should be. Can you just discuss it and the problem, the dilemma that South Africa currently have? Because I feel that we currently have a dilemma where it's coming to which batsman should we pick in that position. Because, I mean, there are so many guys to choose from, all similar type of guys. When I looked at the stats, for example, and I put it on the screen right now for you guys, they're all very similar with regards to their strike rates and with regards to their averages. They're quite close over here between the 3 that you would say are in contention for that position. I'm leaving Aiden out of this one for now because it came across as he's a versatile type of player that can bat anywhere in the top order and the middle order. So that's what they've been speaking about. I don't know. I think that he maybe should be 3 or open. I think that's the position for Aiden, but that's a discussion for the next slide when I bring it on. But Aditya, between these ones, these guys, who do you think should open for South Africa if Faf's not available now, of course? Because if Faf comes, I know you want to see him open.
Yeah, it's the $1 million question. Now, Temba's the captain, so I suppose he's in a position now where he can't be dropped. And it looks, given how yesterday went, sure, he didn't score runs yesterday, but it looked like that was the best position for him to be opening with Quinton de Kock. But then South Africa also have a problem where they've got an excessive supply of top 3 batters, and they have a sparse supply of 5, 6, and 7. So the question is, because Temba and Boucher both have been talking about versatility, is that how can they sort of get batters to adapt different positions? Because Temba has said right from the beginning, right from his first press conference, he said that he's gonna be in the top 3. There's no question about it. But I think his problem is always going to be middle order batsmanship for the South African team. And again, as you said, if Faf comes back, that's going to be a huge issue, because Faf, the batsman, is definitely needed, but then it's going to be Aiden Markham who misses out, and he's vital to the South African team, because he did a brilliant job yesterday at 3, and he can obviously contribute with the ball. So it is a predicament for South Africa, and I think it's going to take a lot of closed door discussions to be able to figure it out. But I suppose if Temba's back in the runs again against Ireland, then who knows? Anything might be possible. But just one other thing I want to say about his captaincy, because I thought the one thing that he did really brilliantly throughout the series was that he used his spinners really well. He identified where he could maximize Tabraiz Shamsi and George Linde's potential in the middle overs, and certainly in that period after the power play. But what he did really well was he was able to sort of get the West Indians to sort of score more dot balls, which I thought really put additional pressure on them, because in difficult conditions they wouldn't always be able to pull off the big hits, which we discussed before the series started as well. Where they're a bit one-dimensional. I think that's gonna cause a little bit of trouble going forward, and certainly heading into the World Cup, where we know that pitches are going to be low, slow, dry, and scores are going to be even lower than what we've seen in this series.
So, guys, we have our first caller on the show. I'm going to give him his opportunity to have a say, and just say what he feels about this particular match. and yeah, we can discuss it afterwards. Welcome to the show, Justin, and nice to meet you. Just give me what you think about the match, where you think South Africa's going forward, what the series did for you, what did it teach you about the Proteas and the team?
Thanks for having me. I think firstly it's important to note that I think we're in a predicament where we also need to not be scared to try things also. When you're trying to build a team, when you're trying to go forward, you sometimes need to make brave calls. Like what you guys discussed earlier with Bavuma. Is he an opener? Is he a number 3? Is he a number 4? Wherever you want to put him. Sometimes you got to put, even with Ireland, for example, maybe from this West Indies, maybe it becomes a good time to just try, see where he's more comfortable at before he gets the next big test, which is obviously down the road. You can only, I even look at stuff like, look at Vian Mulder. Like, he's just the all-round capability that brings a lot of options to Bavuma as a captain also, of who he can turn to, who he can rely to. So and it shows the importance of having an all-rounder in your team. Where in the past you normally have, okay, cool. So you got 2 spinners, cool. We got 4 seamers, but 4's getting smashed. So who do we turn to? Now you're going as, okay, cool. So Rabard he's not looking too great in the start. Nikiti's not looking good. Oh, but you actually got Mulder to try and add more different options or different strategy. Because at the end of the day, cricket, to some extent, as a captain, when you're bowling, has got to do a strategy also. You can't. You also need to. Okay, cool. Then look at India. India does a brilliant. I think they're a perfect example at the moment. They got this ability with Ashton and Jadeja. They got this ability to tie you. They're full of options. They got this ability to strain you to where you are. So South Africa, it's great to have all these options. It's great to be in the predicament of where do you put X, Y, Z. But it's also important you need to tie down. If you're not getting the 10 wickets, you need to tie the side completely down. I don't know if you guys remember. South Africa played Pakistan in one of the World Cups. And I'm talking about 20 over World Cup specifically. And yesterday's game reminded me of that's where we should be looking at. In that World Cup, it was Ajman, all of them, and they were busy tying South Africa down. You had Callis and all of it, and there was no way to play it. There was like, if you could get 4 runs over, it was a bonus. And those shots ended up becoming risks. And I feel if we're not getting the 10 wickets, we should be also looking at a similar strategy on how are you going to tie this down? Are you going to use Linda, Shamsi as part of, instead of just being your average wicket takers, to also try and tie down and say, okay, cool. So the next 8 overs, you're getting nowhere in this period.
So thanks a lot for coming on the show, Justin. I really enjoyed your thoughts. I'll bring you on again in another stream sometime in the future, but thanks a lot for that. Thank you for our first call in. Mashal, I want to ask you some questions. Based on what Justin was talking about, now there's obviously Temba at first. We trying to struggle and find this. We have an issue with all of our anchors, people say. We've got a massive top order that we need to juggle around and find places for. We also have a problem at the back end with our finishers. Miller has been identified by Temba as our designated finisher, our finisher. But with the West Indies again, the West Indies are juggling with all these all-rounders and finishers that they have. So where to put them in? Are you guys maybe missing someone that can anchor, do you maybe think? Who does that role for you, do you feel? And do you need it even? With you guys batting till 9, do you guys really need a person that can do that job?
Before I answer that, I'm actually quite baffled. So all in the comments, and I'm not versed enough in South African cricket to understand. Hence, why I'm putting it to you, to all 4 of you, to answer for me when I'm done. But what's all this hate against Bavuma? I don't understand.
Yeah.
you lot are dragging him like, I'm looking at the comments and everyone's dragging him like he's the worst player. Listen, we'd love a Bavuma in our side, so I'm not sure what's going on there, and maybe someone can enlighten me later on. But,
I'm so glad that you're saying it. That is you saying it, not us.
But to answer your question, there's a lot of, I'll say a lot, maybe there is a lot of chatter about West Indies needing an anchor, but I don't buy it, if I'm honest with you, because I think people are mistaking what an anchor is in 50 over cricket with what an anchor is in 2020 cricket. And the reality is there is no such thing as a batsman who when I say slowly, I mean goes at 100, who bats through an innings. Whoever is an anchor in 2020 cricket also still has to have the ability to accelerate really quickly. So West Indies are actually blessed in that we have a series of 7 to 8 players from 1 through to 8 who really, apart from Evan Lewis, who you know is going to open, who really and truly you should be identifying. At the moment, they seem to have identified Gale or Hetmeyer. And the reality is that Gale and Hetmeyer can bat at 200 if they want to. So when we say anchor, what we mean is one of you two, or maybe even a Pooran, take the responsibility of batting through, and when the time comes, accelerate. But anchor does not mean play singles here and there whilst everyone else goes insane around you, because that's too slow in 2020 cricket. The reality, if anything, I think South Africa have too many anchors, right? In the old style sense of an anchor. When I look at a Rassie and I look at like, that's why I look at your batting order and I'm like, what is your order? I don't get your order. So when I look at Rassie, I'm like, so what is Rassie? What's Rassie's role? I don't even get his role, if I'm honest with you, because to me, Rassie is an old style anchor, but I've seen Rassie go quickly, but it looks like his role he doesn't seem to know what his role is, much less me asking you what his role is. So when I look at Rassie, that's what I see as an anchor, but I see a slow anchor in 2020 cricket, but I know he's better than that. But that's probably because he doesn't know what his role is, per se, in the team. So I don't like this word anchor, because I think people mean something different to what anchor actually is in 2020 cricket. So if I was a South African, if you're not going to open with Aiden, because lots of you are saying Bavuma should open, then Aiden for me comes in at 3, because Aiden to me has the ability to accelerate if he has to. He plays himself in and then accelerates. That might be the wrong person. I don't know South African cricket well enough. Maybe there's someone, lots of you are saying Faf. I don't know. Is it Faf? I don't know. But the point is, an anchor is someone who comes in, plays in, tries to stay deep to the end, and then accelerates when the time comes. Maybe it should be Miller. Anyway, so I'll hand back to you.
Khalid, can I jump in here on that?
Yeah, you can jump in.
Chat? So I think I agree with Michelle. There's no such thing as an anchor in T20 cricket. A guy to sit and take 60 balls, he should get me 100 or 120 at the least. If you're going to take that amount of balls, essentially, if you're going to bat throughout entire innings, you need to give me those type of runs. And I think South Africa, from that perspective, shouldn't go that way. And we shouldn't see our batsmen as that way. We should see our batsmen in a series of progressions, right? They have areas, and all 5 of these batsmen have places in those 20 overs where they bat well, right? And where they can take it to the opposition. And so, for instance, Temba's strike rate in T20 cricket, from 2020 up until now, at number 1, taking the first ball is 142, right? He's only batted at 3 in these 5 games, and his strike rate's at 108 for this series, right? I agree with Timber, and as in his press conference yesterday, he should be batting at 1. He should be scoring a lot more runs, and he knows that too. But he's been injured, and this was his first 5 games, so I think the selectors will try to figure out what's going on. But there are windows that these players need to hit. Aiden Markram's window was perfect yesterday. It was completely perfect. He came in the power play when you lost the wicket as a number 3. He had enough time to get himself in because the power play was slightly slower, but that last over kind of accelerated things a little bit for them. He was looking for boundaries after the power play. They were looking for 1 boundary and over, and they were doing that up until over 14. Aiden and Aiden's window in this side ends around over 10. To give a guy like David Miller the opportunity to come in and give him 10 overs and say, I'm going to try give you 25 to 30 balls, David. And David, I need you to go at about 180 to 200. I understand you can catch up late in the end, but I need you because you need balls if you're our finisher, and it should work that way. And so when Quinton came out and David came in, I thought that was going to happen. But then he lost his wicket. Then the problem is you find it where Rassie's now batting out of his window, because Rassie's window is similar to Aiden's window, where he comes in back into the power play and he can go up until over 15. And if he's already in by over 15, that should be bonus, and you should be trying to look for boundaries at every stage. And I think that's where the issue comes in with the side, is that you have too many similar players. And so the question then is, that's fine. You can go into a World Cup with this 5 plus a Dwayne, but you just need to know that come over 13, Rassie may not be your answer. It may be either David Miller on the back end and try force David Miller to have 7 overs of hitting, or you bring in Dwayne Pretorius, because Chris Morris is unavailable, and I'm not talking about Chris Morris. We bring in Dwayne Pretorius and you let Dwayne have those 20, 25 balls and see what Dwayne can give you to try and help with this boundary thing. Because the moment we got to over 17 and Dwayne Bravo was bowling and everyone else was bowling and Obert McCoy is amazing, it all of a sudden got a little bit harder for our openers, our top middle order guys to try and take it through. And this ideal thing of having someone to try and bat throughout the entire innings isn't something I'd like. There are people who I want to face the most amount of balls, and those people are Quinton, to a certain extent David Miller on the back end, if you give him enough time, because he can strike it at a higher rate. And if Faf comes in, I'd like for Faf to have as many balls as possible. It's a whole AB thing in 2015 at the 2016 World Cup. AB was coming in late. You need to give your best player, your X-factor player, your guy who strikes at a higher strike rate, enough balls to change the game for you, which is why if you look at the West Indies, they literally go down based on strike rate. They don't go down based on everything else. They go, okay, outside of Evan Lewis opening, that's fine. But we'll go Lendl Simmons, Chris Gale. We'll go down that batting order. And I think they did well having Pollard come in higher. And to a certain extent, the one guy who's there for crisis, Nicholas Pooran, will just shift down the order because everyone else who strikes better than him are coming up. So I think we need to consider it in that manner, because I don't mind us being worried about we've got KG and everything else. That's okay. But we also need to understand that there are people who can, and if you're in and you understand you're outside of your window, have a blast. And that's what I loved about Aiden's innings yesterday. The moment he got to over 10, he started looking for boundaries, and that's what you want. That's essentially what you want. Quinton, exactly yesterday, he made sure of that. It's just that obviously now David's out of form, and you need to find a way to get him back into form. And Rassie's batting in a role that isn't his. And so the other question is, it may not be dropping Aiden for Faf. It might actually be dropping Rassie for Faf, because Faf might be a much better player, even coming in at the back end of the innings, than Rassie is, because what we're asking of Rassie in these last 3 games was for him to be that finisher. Whereas David was given the opportunity to have as many balls to play. So I think that's where this issue lies. But I think we should forget about this whole notion of an anchor. And based on Temba's press conference, I think your top 3 is solidified. It'll be Quinton, Temba, and Aiden or Faf, I think. But I think Aiden is going to bat at 3. And then we just need to figure out what we do with Rassie and David. But this notion of someone batting 20 overs or 16 or 15 overs, as Reza said in his press conference when they started this tour, to say that we need one guy in the top 5 to bat the full 15, that's going to be a fallacy. You need guys to understand where they do well in the 20 and put them there so they can thrive. And I think we kind of missed that in this series.
I think that's true. It's something that we need to sort out, particularly when we're talking about we need a finisher and those type of things, and role identification. I mean, I asked Timber that question. Role identification, what is that all about? How is South Africa going to be doing that? Me and Aditya did a whole show on a role identification, a daily show about it as well. We think that's very important if you don't have finishers. But when I look at the finishers in South Africa, and Ravi, I want to ask you this question quickly, because I'm not going to go to the middle right now. I just want to talk about our finishers and their numbers. I mean, when you look at the guys that are competing for that finishing role, and I'm going to throw Dwayne Pretorius in this bracket as well, because I think he's the best batting all-rounder that we have, or the best batsman as an all-rounder that we have in the country currently. So we've got David Miller over here. His averages is 29 and 138. His strike rate in 86 games, 76 innings. Klaasen, 22 matches. I mean, an average of 23. Strike rate 145. But then look at Dwayne's stats. It really took me by quite some surprise, actually, when I looked at it, because I knew he was good, but I didn't know his stats were this good. An average of 31 and a strike rate of 166. So the guy can hit the ball. And just to give you guys a perspective, there's a guy that you guys have been calling for that should play in that all-rounders position, and said that he should come back to South African cricket, and that's Chris Morris, and this is his batting stats. In a similar amount of games to Dwayne Pretorius, averages 14 with a strike rate of 130. So just to give some perspective, Ravi, I want to get your thoughts on this. Finisher, if Dwayne comes back, doesn't that solve the issue?
Dwayne, definitely, but I think besides the average, we need to look at the strike rate. So bordering on 170 is pretty good to come in at that stage of the innings, coming in at 7 or 8, at bashing it at 170 of a strike rate. And if you look at Morris as well, he's also quite a high strike rate as well. The thing is, you're not asking these guys to score 50. You're not asking them to stick around to the very end. You're asking them to unsettle the bowler. You're asking them to make sure you get as close to the 10-run mark and over as possible towards the latter stages of an innings, right? The thing is not you're not building an innings here. You're trying to accumulate the run rate. And that's ultimately what you want from a finisher. Coming back to the comments about David Miller, I agree. He was completely off color this series, both in the field and definitely with the bat as well. Something is clearly wrong, but to drop the guy at this stage, at the eve of the T20 World Cup, it's going to be a very careless move on the South African contingent's part. You can't do that. Miller is a seasoned campaigner. He's definitely done well at that phase of the innings. I think something is clearly wrong. Mentally, I'm not sure what it is, but that's not the David Miller we know. And I know this because I used to slate him quite extensively. You guys know this on the podcast. But the David Miller I saw could at least muster up 1 or 2 sixes. I happened to see one, I think, in the 5th T20. But that was about it. I didn't see much. And I remember him not necessarily dropping the catch, but I think he lost the ball in the lights or something. But the ball was dipping. I think it was off Ngiri's over. And it just went over his head for 6. And I was like, Miller, I know would have gobbled it up in a second. So finishers are definitely needed. I think his place could very well be something that needs to be discussed extensively. And I think Dwayne Pretorius is very much coming back to your initial point, the initial slides you're sharing there. The strike rate is by far one of the most critical areas we need to look at. Dwayne Pretorius is very understated in that area, and I think he should definitely be considered, and he will definitely play a vital role coming in at 8 going forward. Morris as well as a close second, but let's not underestimate Andile Fekroka. I really would have liked to have seen his strike rate. If somebody in the that's watching the stream could perhaps comment on that, but it would be nice just to draw a comparison in that regard as well, because I think we've got options galore. It's just a matter of understanding who will fulfill that role, particularly towards the end of the innings.
Yeah, Aticha, I just want to get your thoughts on that as well, and you can maybe answer the super chat. Thanks a lot for the super chat. I just want to ask you about Marco More. Anyone? I know, Aditya, I mean, we've spoken about Marco More for a long time. Do you maybe think it's too soon now to experiment with a guy like Marco More? I don't think there's enough games for someone like him to show actually Lukiani to be in the side for the World Cup. What do you think?
Yeah, at this stage, it may not be advisable to do that. And as Bacha said in his press conference, he wants to try to bring a bunch of his players back into that high confidence zone again, where they're firing on all cylinders. So that's an important one. But I think more than anything, they sort of need to figure it out. They need to figure out who their finishers are. Because one more thing that we need to add to that debate is that what is the definition of a finisher? And which position defines your role as a finisher? Because when we did our daily show on role identification, we've identified Hardik Pandya as a finisher, Moeen Ali as a finisher, Glenn Maxwell as a finisher, and they've all batted between 4 and 6. So what does it mean for a player to be a finisher? So essentially, if you're batting at number 3 or 4 and you bat long enough, then it's your responsibility to accelerate towards the end and finish the game. Because as we discussed on that show, Hardik Pandya, when he's batting at 4, it means that the top order has batted for most of the innings and he's coming in just to smack it, and he's striking at 245. So there he's played the role of the finisher. So the question for South Africa is that are players between 4 and 6 prepared to seal off the innings? That's the question. But in saying that, I think it's sort of, it would be unfair also on Marco Murray to be drafted in at this stage. But interesting debate. South Africa has some work to do on that front.
Yeah, but before Michelle has to go, I just want, Paul, you can go after Michelle. I just want to ask Michelle a question, because you can see, Michelle, by reading the comments, how harsh our fans are on players, and it's drop him, put him in, drop him, put him in. And it's been consistent like this in our fan base for quite some time. How many games would you say is enough for you to say, okay, a guy deserves to have a spot in a particular side or get an extra chance? How many games is enough for you to be able to say you are confident with a player from your team?
That's a very good question, So so David Miller, right, has had a horror series, right? Let's just take Miller as an example. So David Miller had a horror series, and for all those people in the comments, bear in mind that I'm not a South African, right? And I'm not a Proteas fan. But if we're gonna throw shade at Bavuma, surely you have to throw shade at Miller before you're throwing shade at Bavuma, because Miller, by all I'm just from an outside looking in, he did have a good series. But then here's the thing. Would I drop David Miller? Of course I wouldn't. Because with a game, and this is coming back to your question, Khalid, with a game like T20, you cannot sleep on experience. And what David Miller has is worldwide experience in the game. And someone like that, you're willing to give a horror run because you know that in the clutch, in your kind of top 5 players, if you had to back someone to do something mad, he's in your top 3 that you're most likely to back in the clutch. So certain players you just don't drop, and that's why the same. It's so interesting seeing how South African fans are. I feel like I'm in the West Indies, or in the Caribbean, I should say, because it's the same argument that people are having back home with regards to a Gale or a Puran or a Hetmeyer. The minute they fail, everyone's like drop. But that doesn't make any sense, because you have to take factors. Different factors have to come into play. With Gale, it's experience. With Hetmeyer and Puran, for example, and you may have examples to give me in South Africa, it's also, if it's not experience, it's about potential upside. Now, they may not, Puran currently is on a horror run for us, but we know that his ceiling is so high, you've got to give him time. You've got to give him time. And T20 cricket is so volatile that a man can be out of form for a 5-match stretch and then find his form in another 5 matches. So you can't, it doesn't work like Test cricket where you're just like, well, drop, it's over. Drop because there's something wrong with your technique. It will come back. To link that to Bavuma, and this is why I was so perplexed about everyone with Bavuma, he's captain. So why is everyone arguing? He's captain. That's the end of it. There is no debate. He's a captain. He's not going to get dropped as captain, so he plays. So I don't even see why there's such a strong debate about it. It's absurd. It's absurd to me. So in terms of though, and my final answer, sorry, Khalid, when do you drop someone? You drop someone. Oh, this is a hard question. If you genuinely believe you have someone better, and crucially, this is crucial now, and in the win, and we have to remember we're going up to a World Cup, so the zone of experimentation is running out. And with something like T20, and I've written this down about the West Indies, because there's no tournaments that we can judge things off. We haven't got a domestic T20 going on. IPL isn't till just before the World Cup. CPL is in late August, early September. So it's we have to see if the panel and someone mean. You have to be realistic about dropping someone as well. If there's no data to go on, what you're basically saying is you're bringing somebody in just because they're not that person. Do you get what I mean?
Why did I not say that before?
You're not actually basing it on actual data and evidence So when people say to me, for example, bring in Shea Hope, you're saying that because it's Shea Hope. That's not because you've got any raw data for me to look at right now that's relevant to why we would bring Shea Hope in and drop Chris Gale. That doesn't make any sense to me. But sometimes, sport, it's emotional. It's emotional, So we just have to.
And in South Africa, political. In South Africa, political. But Shal, thanks a lot, man, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed every single time. I hope we can still do collabs down the line, even if it's just a broad cricketing topic. Finish following him on Carib Cricket, of course, guys. I shout them out every single time. Go follow them on all social media platforms as well.
If I just come back in, Khalid, just wanted to say, for all the ones who have jumped across from Carib Cricket to jump on with Khalid and the guys, it's been an absolute pleasure from our perspective, Khalid. I've really appreciated you bringing me on. Love the collabs, man. And if you're new to Cricket Fanatics and what they're doing, subscribe and stay locked into what they're doing. They're good guys, man. And I've learned so much about South African cricket from just locking into everything that they're doing. So thanks for the opportunities, guys. Really loved it. And let's do some more stuff in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot. I learned a lot from you too. Thanks a lot. And please go follow them, guys. They're doing excellent work there too. Okay. Mpo, I'm going to let you answer this question. Very important. Werner has put his team, and he gave us an excellent super chat early on. I just want to put his team on the screen. Can you please tell me what you think about it and what your thoughts are about this team going forward into this game?
Kagiso batting at 8 is too low. It's too deep. It's too high for me, especially having Shamsi and Tahir, and also Dwayne and Morris. You're gonna have to pick between Kagiso and Nokia to be the one seamer and have another all-rounder at 8. That's how I see it. The question is obviously, do you want to give yourself batting cover at 8, or do you want to go in with your 4 seamers, with your 4 out-and-out bowlers, and then have the 7? But I agree with this largely. I just have a question of KG and Nokia at 8 with Shamsi here in the side. I'd love for those two to be playing together. It's just a question of, is the balance slightly off from a batting perspective if you need somebody else later on? I don't know if you agree with me, Aditya, while we wait for Khalid to come back.
Since the UAE is going to be a spinner-friendly sort of environment, I agree with you. It's got to be one between KG and Nokia. And additionally, I'm not sure if Proteas and Morris fit in the same team. That's a bit of a question mark. But yeah, I think Linda, Shamsi, and Tahir, they make for a potent spinner attack for the World Cup for sure. But yeah, I think I'd make a few changes to the bowling lineup. And secondly, I don't know, I'm a fan of Faf opening the batting as opposed to Bavuma. I think he would his experience in the UAE and the subcontinent just equip him a lot more to be able to navigate the challenges of batting in the power play. I think Bavuma is a skillful batsman, but I'm not sure he still has the experience of batting in the subcontinent the way Faf does.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And And to a certain extent, I don't mind the switch between Bavuma and Faf. I'm just a little worried about the back end, and I think we just need to figure out a way to make sure that at the end, if your number 8 is coming in, if your number 8 is coming in and you need like 10 or 6, can KG give you 10 or 5 or 6? And that's the guy I want. So if someone can give me that, and to a certain extent, I'm okay with George Linda sliding down. Or I know Morris is a bit of a problem from a bowling perspective, because the way I rate my all rounders is from a batting perspective, it's Dwayne, it's Morris, and it's Andile. But from a bowling perspective, you switch it the way around. It's Andile, Chris, and then Dwayne. So you kind of need to figure out a way out of those three. If somehow CSA figures out a way to get Chris Morris back in, how you're gonna wrangle all your 3 all rounders. But I'm happy with that 11 going into a World Cup. It's just gonna have to give your top order a lot more responsibility, and this whole fear of not getting out is just going to continue. And I'd like to have a number 8 that eases that fear of losing your wicket that we've seen throughout this series, to just kind of dissipate, for someone to be like, okay, even if I don't make it, there's somebody else coming behind me. And like when Michelle was saying that, I was like, I wish we could do that, because sometimes that's what gets you to 200 most times, than you just saying, no, I need to hold my wicket until over 15. And that means there are going to be some overs where we're going to have 6-5, 6-5 or 4, and it's not going to work out. Ravi, what do you think?
Sorry, I'll be honest, I wasn't part of the conversation, more the comments section. Lots of hate for Temba Bavuma tonight. So I am defending as best as I can. I'll stand by this, guys. You start off your tenure as a captain and you pull off an away win when the odds were completely against you. You're playing against the world champions of T20 cricket, and you come away with a 3-2 win. That's as good a start as you can ask for. All we can ask as fans is that, we ask the fellow fans to be patient, go with the transition, enjoy the cricket. And the fact that these guys pulled off a 3-2 win against a team with a considerable number of veterans in the form of Gale, Bravo, it speaks volumes. It speaks absolute volumes. And I think you just need to give the team, you need to give the new leadership a chance, let them express themselves to the full extent. What I will leave this panel with is that I have to say this is the first time I've seen a South African team be very brave with their selections and be very brave with the change of tactics as well. I never thought I'd live to see the day where South Africa played 3 spinners in the team, as well as a 6 bowling option. And that speaks volumes for me. I think they're headed in the right direction. And let's leave the politics aside. Let's just watch cricket, let's enjoy it. And let's just, wish the team the best. And let's hope that they carry on the same trajectory, on the same good path.
Okay, guys.
Khalid, are you back?
I think I'm back. Am I back? Does it look like I'm back? Okay, because I don't know what's going on with this. As soon as I go for over an hour, my computer or the streamer starts to freeze. I don't know if you feel the same thing on your side, Paul. I need to actually lodge a complaint to them because it keeps on happening over and over again. I just got a message from Aiden. He said that he's usually I just wished him, and he said thank you for the wishes, super happy with the win, hope everything is well on our side, etc. So they're feeling stoked, they're feeling confident going forward into the next series. Hopefully they can keep up that particular performances. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast show. Something new, something different that we did for today's show. We'll go back to the normal things as per usual this week. Obviously, our daily show will be at 7 o'clock once again. Myself and Natija or Paul or Ravi or anybody of the guys you'll see, we'll mix it up over this week. Please smash that like button. And we had an amazing amount of viewership today consistently on this channel. So please smash that like button. Let's at least get that likes up to about 40 or 50, guys. Come on, please. I think that we gave you guys an excellent review show on this and a good perspectives from all around. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. click that notification bell for all future videos. We'll see you again tomorrow with another daily show. Thank you, Mpo. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Spiceman. Thank you, Tines, for coming on the show. Thanks for the caller that came on the show. Thanks as well to Marshall for coming on and giving us some excellent insight. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow with another daily show. Enjoy your week.